Super Rugby semi-finals, folks, and it's the Blues who will take on the Chiefs from Eden Park next week. How did the semi-finals go? We'll go through them and you guys can let us know your thoughts. The first one was the Blues taking on the Brumbies from Eden Park. It finishes 34-20, which is kind of a comfortable enough lead, but it would have only been one score from the Brumbies away from making it kind of a squeaky bum finish. But 34-20, the Blues really got out to a cracking start in that one to try to AJ Lamb on 2 minutes, cracking hands from the Blues to Tutu to Plummer and to Lamb pretty much unmarked out wide. Riccatelli got one from a maul and then Derry got one from close range. So 3 tries and the Brumbies could only really answer with penalties in the 6th and 12th minutes early. So yeah, the Blues were looking decently comfortable and then Caleb Clark got a try out wide on 21 minutes to really make it look like it was going to be totally lopsided. However, the Brumbies got one before halftime with Rob Bellatini burrowing over. And in the second half, they traded 1 try each, with Satutu getting one from when the Brumbies could kind of rip the ball loose. But Satutu was the man who kind of pounced on it. So he grabbed one. And then Reimer got one from basically a snipe from the side of a ruck in reply. So if the Brumbies had managed one in the second, in the last kind of 10 minutes in the second half, it may have been more interesting, like I said. But the Blues were kind of able to just kind of canter along to a victory in that one. Stats wise, it wasn't stupidly lopsided. I've seen some people commenting oh, the Blues will be a lot more fresh for the kind of ease of final they had compared to the Chiefs. Run meters were 456 to 358, so the Blues did have that by 100 or so, but the Brumbies had more possession. The Brumbies had more territory, especially in the second half. The Blues did have to make a bunch of tackles. Clean breaks finished 4-3, which is pretty even. The penalty count was 8-6, with the Blues being pinged a couple more times. Papali'i looked like he'd kind of failed in HIA, but I've seen a post-match interview where he says he's all good, so fingers crossed he is fit for the final. There was a fair bit of talk about the attendance for this one not being that great, and I would say there's probably a few factors at play. Aussie team is never as big a draw as a local team. You don't really get any away fans. We had torrential rainstorm the day before, and the kind of morning of that game probably put a few people off. And then the Warriors played the next day. So a lot of casual fans will only go to one or the other, the Warriors or the Blues. And the Melbourne Storm will come into town, who are one of the top teams in the NRL. So, yeah, I think the Warriors probably do a better match day experience as well. So if you're someone looking for a good night out, you wanting to stay away from the rain, you might have gone to the Warriors game instead of the Blues one. I mean, I'm not saying that there's aren't other issues at play, but I think that is certainly one of the factors. The other game was the Hurricanes-Chiefs one, which was kind of a similar scoreline in the end, 19 points to 30, but it was a real ding-dong battle down there in Wellington, certainly a better crowd. I think the day after all that horrendous weather, but it did seem to be very windy. Teams were kicking it really low, because they just didn't want the ball to kind of get caught in the swirling wind. And I do feel like the Chiefs, they handled the kicking game a lot better than the Canes did, and the Canes' handling was awful. I swear they saved their worst performance in terms of their ball handling skills for this semi-final. Kicking game, the Chiefs kicked it 40 times in this game. For context, the Brumbies game in total didn't have that many kicks. And then the Canes kicked it 25 times on top of that. So, yeah, a fair bit of kicking this game with the win. But yeah, the Chiefs had some magic tries. The first one through Finau, Narawa is like a bloody greased up eel. Nobody could catch him. And then he offloads to Finau, who takes it one-handed above his head to kind of dot it down while jumping is unbelievable. That's on 3 minutes. Ratima gets one on 6 from kind of a charge down again. Low trajectory kick. He's able to kind of finish it off after Satiti has kind of had a hand at it. So 2 early tries for the Chiefs. Lakai did get one through a big gap for the Canes, but I think that gap was partly created through Tokiaho being seemingly injured, so hopefully he's all right, but I haven't kind of seen any updates on his injury. Brett Cameron got one during a yellow card period, which is a little bit controversial because Jacobson got yellow carded for a late hit, I think, on Geordie Barrett, but it wasn't that late and it wasn't high. They hit him in the shoulder. it seemed like a bit of a nonsense one for mine because I looked at the highlight and checked the time. I believe approximately 1 second elapses between Jordie Barrett passing it and then getting smacked. Like, I don't know what human reaction times are. I just looked it up on Google. It's apparently about 1/4 of a second. So if you've seen Jordie Barrett pass it, your reaction time is 1/4 of a second. You've got like 3/4 of a second to pull out of the tackle. Doesn't seem like a heck of a lot. It seems like basically he just hit him really hard because the TMO said, well, there's a lot of force, significant force. I don't know. It didn't seem that late for mine. I wish they would kind of take the actual time elapsed into consideration because when you slow it down, ridiculously slow in slow motion, it looks like he had an age to pull out, but the game ain't played in slow motion. Anyway, I won't rant on about that. Cameron got one during the yellow card. Isaac Walker-Leaweta with a nice offload. The Canes find some space. But then maybe the try of the game is one that would have been another yellow card for the Chiefs because they were getting in trouble with the yellow cards in this game. But Satiti, intercept pass, he does the kind of stick out of one mitt, but he's able to gather it. You know, rugby union's got this law about if you stick out one mitt and don't catch it, it's basically ruled a deliberate knock-on. Even if it's not a deliberate knock-on, if it's just a failed intercept, which is kind of what it is in actuality, on the rules, the laws, it's called a deliberate knock-on. But if you stick out one mitt and don't catch it, it's a deliberate knock-on. He sticks out one mitt, Wallace Satiti. He gathers it, goes length of the field, just short of a try himself, but a couple of phases later, one phase later, Ronna is able to go out wide. Satiti's the man who sets it up. Absolutely. Cracking stuff from the Chiefs. Puts it potentially beyond the Canes. Proctor did get one out wide as well. One-handed try in the corner, but also you got to give credit a bit to the kicking of D-Mac in the wind. Some of those kicks, it looked like he pushed it wide, and then it just bends around in the wind. Really, really kind of beautiful stuff. So, yeah, Chiefs get it done away from home, which is not an easy feat. Clean break 6-4 to the Chiefs. Possession goes to the Canes, 47%, but territory to the Chiefs, 57%. Part of that's the kick-in. I mentioned the handling. Knock-ons, 12-4. Guess which team is 12? Bloody Canes. Not really any mauling going on in that game, which is an unusual one. But the Blues certainly mauled it a bit against the Brumbies, so we'll see if that happens in the final. Individuals, Amoa had 38 metres, Lakai had 15 tackles, but Nana Satura 91 metres, 2 defenders beaten. Satiti 150 metres, which is insane. 2 clean breaks, 4 defenders beaten. Also made 13 from 14 tackles. Also, there was a weird incident where TJ Perenara had kind of a head v head moment because Finau had got pinged. I forgot to mention that Finau had been pinged for a kind of head v head when he'd tackled TJ from a box kick, but then TJ had a head v head moment that didn't get pinged. It was bizarre. I don't usually talk too much about the officiating, but the officiating in that game was genuinely pretty bizarre. The TJ lack of call, or at least lack of review, maybe the TMO had a better angle that we didn't see, but it looked dodgy. And the Jacobson one just seemed a bit weird, given that it was like a second that he was given to pull out of a tackle, and he didn't really hit him, I don't think, high or late. But anyway, I said I would stop ranting about it. The finals next week, Blues Chiefs. I reckon it'll be a good crowd, just because it's regional rivals. It's not too far to get from Hamilton or other places in the Waikato up here to Auckland. I think the fans should turn out for the final. I don't know if the Warriors are playing next weekend in Auckland, but if they're playing away, I think they're playing away. So casual fans won't have to kind of divide their outing of choice. So, yeah. You guys let us know your thoughts. If you are watching in the States, you can watch on BLUvBRU. Down in the description, I'll put a link. They'll be having this final. They'll be having the URC final. They got the top 14. We'll see what coverage they've got of the upcoming rugby internationals as well. But if you want to watch in the States, that is the place to get it done. You guys let us know your thoughts. Final next week. Who are you backing, Blues or Chiefs? I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.